Amid verses of salvation and prophecies of redemption lies a shadowy archive, the record of women so dangerous, so wicked, that the mere mention of their names in ancient times was enough to chill the blood of the most faithful. These women were not mere transgressors. They embodied something deeper, incarnations of chaos, agents of spiritual corruption, figures who defied divine order with cold, calculated actions. They did not simply sin, they dominated, manipulated, and destroyed. This is not about misogyny. This is biblical truth. There are women who, when they allowed themselves to be instruments of darkness, became more lethal than any enemy army. This is no ordinary episode. It is a list of female figures who marked biblical history not for their piety, but for their spiritual danger. Women who were protagonists of evil, incarnations of deception, and catalysts for the downfall of kings, prophets, and entire nations. Prepare yourself. We are about to begin a dark countdown, from the least to the most dangerous. Each name on this list carries the weight of unforgivable deeds, deep betrayals, and horrors that defy comprehension. And brace yourself.
Welcome to a realm beyond the ordinary. On this channel, we journey into the hidden secrets of the realms, both heaven and earth, unveiling ancient truth, spiritual mysteries, and the unseen forces that shaping our world. Here, we explore the mysteries of angels, divine encounter, supernatural dimension, and the spiritual laws that govern life. Whether you are seeking deeper understanding, prophetic insight, or spiritual growth, this is your gateway into revelations that transform, enlighten, and empower. Join us as we uncover what many fear to discuss, what some try to hide, and what only the bold are willing to explore. Welcome to a community hungry for truth, illumination, and the deeper things of the spirit. Please do share and subscribe for more.
For what will be revealed here may truly surprise you. Number 5. Potiphar's wife. In the vast and mysterious land of ancient Egypt, in a time long past, lived a woman whose story, steeped in intrigue and passion, was recorded in the Bible as a tale of temptation, betrayal, and vengeance. This episode unfolds during the life of Joseph, one of Jacob's sons, who, after being rejected and sold into slavery by his own brothers, found himself in the heart of Egypt, far from his homeland. Joseph was purchased by Potiphar, a high-ranking officer of Pharaoh and captain of the guard. Potiphar, a man of influence and power, quickly recognized Joseph's exceptional abilities. The young Hebrew slave, with his intelligence and dedication, was entrusted with the management of Potiphar's entire household, an appointment that reflected not only his competence, but also the evident favor of God upon him. Joseph was no ordinary servant. He held a position of deep trust, overseeing everything under his master's roof. However, within that house of wealth and authority, a shadow began to rise. Potiphar's wife, a woman who might be described as alluring and enigmatic, became a central figure in a plot driven by desire and manipulation. Whether moved by lust, boredom, or a thirst for control, she fixed her gaze upon Joseph. The Bible offers striking detail about her persistence in trying to seduce the young man, with her advances growing bolder each day. In Genesis 39:7-10, we read, "And after a time, his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph and said, 'Lie with me.' But he refused, and said to his master's wife, 'Behold, because of me, my master has no concern about anything in the house, and he has put everything that he has in my charge. He is not greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept back anything from me except you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?' And as she spoke to Joseph day after day, he would not listen to her, to lie beside her, or to be with her. Despite her relentless pursuit, Joseph remained steadfast, preserving his integrity and loyalty, both to Potiphar and to God. Yet Potiphar's wife, determined and increasingly desperate, did not cease her efforts. When words failed, she turned to cunning. One day, when the house was empty, she seized Joseph by his garment and demanded he sleep with her. But Joseph, upholding his righteousness, fled from her grasp, leaving his cloak behind. This act, far from a sign of weakness, displayed his moral strength and resolve to resist sin. For Potiphar's wife, however, it became the seed of revenge. Enraged and humiliated by his refusal, she used Joseph's garment as evidence of a fabricated accusation of sexual assault. She falsely claimed that Joseph had tried to violate her. The account in Genesis 39:11 through 18 describes the situation. One day he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. She caught him by his cloak and said, "Lie with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and had run out, she called her household servants. "Look," she said to them, "this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house." This false accusation cast Joseph into a pit of suffering and injustice. When Potiphar heard his wife's account, he burned with anger and, without conducting any further investigation, ordered that Joseph be thrown into prison. The prison he was placed in was reserved for Pharaoh's captives, a place of both physical and psychological torment. Though innocent, Joseph found himself surrounded by lies and betrayal, paying a high price for his loyalty to both his master and to God. Genesis 39:19 through 20 recounts Potiphar's reaction. When his master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, "This is how your slave treated me." He burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. Yet what seemed to be a tragedy for Joseph and a triumph for those who conspired against him became the setting for divine opportunity. Even in prison, God did not abandon Joseph. The Lord continued to show him favor, and through his wisdom and leadership, Joseph once again rose above his circumstances. The prison warden, impressed by his character, entrusted him with the management of all the prisoners, a position of influence even within confinement. In Genesis 39:21 through 23, we read, "The Lord was with Joseph and showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did." The prison, which at first glance appeared to be the end of Joseph's dreams, was actually a turning point in his life. There, he discovered a new mission, a new path to rise. His ability to interpret dreams brought him into contact with Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker, whose dreams Joseph, through divine insight, was able to interpret accurately. These interpretations eventually opened the door to his future ascent to power. Joseph would go on to become the second most powerful man in Egypt, tasked with organizing preparations for the coming famine that would devastate the region. He oversaw the collection and distribution of grain, saving not only Egypt but also his own family, who later came to Egypt seeking refuge during the crisis. Genesis 41 details his rise to power and how Joseph's steadfast faithfulness to God, even amid adversity, was rewarded beyond measure. Thus, the malicious actions of Potiphar's wife unknowingly set the stage for Joseph's greatness. She thought she had destroyed him. Instead, she propelled him toward his divine destiny. His story is living proof that God can transform even the most evil schemes and treacherous intentions into opportunities to fulfill his higher purposes. Sadly, the legacy of Potiphar's wife, marked by false accusation and manipulation, remains a cautionary tale to this day. Her story is a stark warning about the dangers of slander and the selfish pursuit of power. But Joseph's ultimate triumph, won through perseverance and unshakable faith, demonstrates the supremacy of God's plan over the schemes of man. Number 4. Delilah. Many people commit evil, but few revel in it and profit from it. Delilah was one of those rare exceptions. Her story unfolds during the turbulent era of the Judges, a time when Israel faced constant conflict with its neighbors, particularly the powerful Philistines. Delilah lived in the valley of Sorek, a strategically important region closely associated with the Philistines, who were fierce and relentless enemies of Israel. Although her exact age is not mentioned in the Bible, her actions and impact are unmistakable. Delilah was not a mere woman of the Philistine people. She was deeply entwined with the leaders of the Philistine nation, aligning herself with their goals and ambitions, especially those aimed at subduing Israel. And it was this alliance that made her a central figure in the downfall of Samson, one of Israel's most legendary judges, whose supernatural strength made him nearly invincible. The Philistine rulers, desperate to subdue Samson, realized that Delilah could be the key to uncovering the secret of his supernatural strength. So, they generously bribed her with a large sum of silver to seduce him and thus reveal the mystery that made Samson invincible. As narrated in the book of Judges, chapter 16, verse 5, Delilah, driven by greed, agreed to the treacherous plan. Delilah was not a woman of weak character, but rather a ruthless manipulator. She used every means to try to deceive Samson, pressuring him and persisting day after day to make him reveal the secret of his strength. Although Samson initially responded with false clues, Delilah did not give up. Her persistence and soft yet insistent words began to wear down Samson's resistance. In Judges 16:16-17, the moment is described when, exhausted and anguished, Samson finally reveals the truth. "A razor has never touched my head, for I have been a Nazirite dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head is shaved, then my strength will leave me, and I will become weak, like any other man." Delilah then knew she had obtained what the Philistines so desperately desired. Taking advantage of Samson's vulnerability, she lulled him into a deep sleep, laid his head in her lap, and treacherously ordered a man to shave off the 7 locks of Samson's hair, depriving him of the supernatural strength God had given him. With that, Samson became vulnerable. Without his divine strength, he was captured by the Philistines, who blinded him, humiliated him, and forced him to grind grain in a prison mill in Gaza, as described in Judges 16:21. The humiliation of Samson was immense. For a judge of Israel, a spiritual and military leader, found himself reduced to a state of utter helplessness. However, the story does not end there. For her betrayal, Delilah was generously rewarded by the Philistine leaders, who gave her 100 pieces of silver each, according to Judges 16:5. This significant sum reflects the great value the Philistines placed on Samson's defeat. But what happened to Delilah after these events is not detailed in the Bible. She disappears from the narrative abruptly, as if her fate were irrelevant once her purpose was fulfilled. Nevertheless, what Delilah did not know was that her actions would have consequences lasting far longer. During Samson's captivity, his hair began to grow again, symbolizing the restoration of his strength, a metaphor for the return of his connection with God. At a pagan celebration in the temple of Dagon, the Philistines, blinded by arrogance, gathered to mock Samson. It was then that he prayed to God, asking that his strength be restored one last time. God granted his request, and by a divine act of strength, Samson pulled down the temple pillars, collapsing the structure and killing thousands of Philistines, including their rulers. This final act of Samson not only avenged his suffering, but also dealt a devastating blow to Philistine leadership. Although Delilah is not mentioned again, her role in the story is crucial, as she symbolizes betrayal and deceit, and her actions had a profound impact not only on Samson's life, but also on the history of the people of Israel. Her story serves as a stern reminder of the dangers of greed and manipulation, and how these forces can lead to destruction. Delilah's betrayal was one of the darkest episodes in the biblical narrative, showing that although she was temporarily rewarded by the Philistines, the evil she committed turned against her and her allies. Her name became marked as a symbol of treachery, and the suffering she caused Samson was not without consequence. Despite her brief appearance in the story, Delilah leaves a legacy of deceit and corruption that still resonates today as a warning about the dangers of aligning with evil for personal gain. Number 3. Herodias. The story of Herodias is one of the most tragic and disturbing in the Bible, a narrative marked by ambition, revenge, and the use of manipulation to achieve personal goals. Herodias was a member of the Herodian dynasty, a ruling family in Judea that, in its constant struggles for power, frequently married within itself to strengthen its alliances and influence. However, Herodias' story is not only about the political game of this family, but also about how the desire for power and the pursuit of revenge can destroy lives and hearts. Initially, Herodias was married to Herod Philip, her half-uncle, but the relationship that might have seemed like a political alliance soon fell apart when Herodias left her husband to marry Herod Antipas, the Tetrarch of Galilee and Perea. This marriage caused scandal and controversy, not only because of the divorce, but also because it involved marrying the brother of her first husband, which was considered a serious violation of Jewish law. Therefore, this union was seen as illegitimate and caused great indignation among the Jews of that time. However, Herodias did not care about conventions or Jewish morality. Her anger was ignited by the words of John the Baptist, who publicly denounced Herod Antipas's marriage to Herodias, calling it unlawful and contrary to God's will. In Mark 6:18-19, we see John accusing Herod and Herodias of violating divine law, which deeply enraged Herodias. The humiliation of having her marriage exposed publicly and criticized by a man widely respected made her crave revenge. Her opportunity came during the celebration of Herod Antipas's birthday. It was a grand feast, where the king was surrounded by his officials and important guests. Herodias cunningly manipulated her daughter Salome to dance before Herod and his guests, a dance that delighted everyone and led Herod, in a moment of pleasure, to promise Salome that he would give her whatever she wished, even up to half his kingdom. This promise, made publicly, was irrevocable. Instigated by her mother, who harbored deep hatred for John the Baptist, Salome asked for the prophet's head on a platter. This macabre and cruel request was a direct blow to Herod, who respected John and knew he was a righteous man. However, bound by his oath and to maintain his honor before his guests, he felt compelled to order John's execution despite his inner turmoil. In Mark 6:24-27, we see the king, with a heavy heart, ordering the prophet's beheading. John the Baptist, known for his ascetic life and bold proclamation of God's truth, was beheaded in prison. His head was brought to Salome, who handed it to her mother Herodias as a grim trophy. This act, while silencing John's voice, revealed the cruelty and ruthlessness of Herodias, whose heart was nourished by rancor and revenge. However, Herodias did not face immediate consequences for her actions within the biblical narrative. Her role in John's death does not seem to bring direct punishment at that moment, but her life story shows us that ultimately the price of evil deeds always comes due. Eventually, the fate of her husband Herod Antipas ended tragically. The Roman Emperor Caligula, after accusing him of conspiracy and disloyalty, exiled Herod Antipas to Gaul, the region corresponding to modern-day France. This exile marked the end of Herod's political career and influence in the region. The Bible does not detail Herodias' fate after her husband's exile, but it is known that, alongside Herod, she lost the power and status she had gained, reflecting the inevitable consequences of corruption and injustice. The story of Herodias is one of the darkest within the biblical context, and her legacy is one of infamy. Her manipulation of her daughter, her relentless revenge against John the Baptist, and the betrayal she embodied make her a classic example of the destructive power of uncontrolled anger and the pursuit of vengeance at any cost. Herodias is not just a woman who made a mistake. She represents the abuse of power and moral decay that comes when a person allows themselves to be consumed by hatred and manipulation. Although the Bible does not tell us exactly what happened to her after her husband's exile, the impact of her actions extends far beyond her lifetime. She is remembered as the epitome of vengeance, betrayal, and ruthless behavior. Her story serves as a powerful reminder that the desire for revenge and manipulation of circumstances can lead a person down a spiral of moral degradation. Herodias's path is a warning about the dangers of following selfish desires, even if it means hurting or destroying others in the process. Number 2. Athaliah. The story of Athaliah is one of the darkest and most cruel in the Bible, filled with betrayal, massacres, and an unrelenting thirst for power. Daughter of Ahab and Jezebel, two of Israel's most infamous monarchs, Athaliah was raised in an environment marked by idolatry and tyranny. Ahab, known for his worship of pagan gods and ruthless rule, and Jezebel, a queen whose wicked actions reflected the destructive power of her ambition, bequeathed to their daughter a lineage of corruption and evil. Her marriage to Jehoram, king of Judah, represented a strategic alliance between the kingdoms of Israel and Judah, but also consolidated the influence of the Herodian dynasty and her own family in the region's political scene. However, Athaliah's true nature was revealed after the death of her husband Jehoram and the ascent of her son Ahaziah to the throne of Judah. Although Ahaziah reigned for only a brief period, his premature death opened an even darker path for Athaliah, who, in an act of pure ambition, sought to consolidate her power over Judah. Athaliah's insatiable thirst for power manifested itself brutally and relentlessly when she made a horrific decision to eliminate all royal heirs who could threaten her rule. Athaliah ordered a massacre of terrifying proportions. She did not hesitate to kill anyone of the royal lineage, including her own grandchildren, to ensure that no one could challenge her authority. This bloody slaughter spared not even members of her own family, and the Bible describes this terrible act in detail in 2 Kings 11, 1-3. When Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she rose up and destroyed all the royal family. But as much as Athaliah tried to eliminate all possible successors to the throne, she did not count on the cunning of Jehosheba, daughter of Jehoram and sister of Ahaziah. Jehosheba hid the young Joash, son of Ahaziah, and protected him from Athaliah by taking him to the house of the Lord, where he remained safe for 6 years. Athaliah's relentless massacre reveals not only the brutality of her quest for power, but also her utter disregard for family ties and morality. She was willing to sacrifice anything and anyone, including her own grandchildren, to maintain her hold over Judah. For the following 6 years, Athaliah ruled with an iron fist, likely continuing the idolatrous and tyrannical practices she inherited from her parents, Ahab and Jezebel, maintaining a policy of persecution and control. However, Athaliah's reign of terror would not last forever. The people of Judah, tired of tyranny and idolatrous practices, began to rebel. It was in this context that the high priest Jehoiada, loyal to the true royal lineage, orchestrated a careful coup to overthrow Athaliah and restore the legitimate leadership of the kingdom. With the support of military leaders and temple guards, Jehoiada meticulously planned the revolt. When Joash turned 7 years old, Jehoiada revealed to the people that he was the rightful king of Judah. The people, exhausted by Athaliah's ruthless rule, rallied around Joash, and in an emotional and hopeful ceremony, they proclaimed him king. The moment was dramatic. When Athaliah heard the sound of trumpets and the shouts of joy from the people, she entered the temple of the Lord only to find Joash, crowned and anointed as the legitimate king, standing before everyone. With a cry of despair, she tore her clothes and exclaimed, "Treason! Treason!" However, her attempt to reverse the situation was in vain. Jehoiada, the priest, gave clear orders that the army captains spare no one loyal to Athaliah, and she was seized and taken out of the temple, where she was executed. 2 Kings 11:15-16 describes the end of her tyranny. Then they seized her, and she was led out through the horses' entrance to the king's house, where she was put to death. Athaliah's death not only marked the end of her brutal reign, but also represented the end of her family's corrupt influence over Judah. With her death, the Davidic line was restored, and Joash, the rightful heir, took the throne, beginning a new era for the kingdom of Judah. Under Jehoiada's guidance, the people of Judah returned to worshipping the Lord, and Joash's reign symbolized a renewal of piety and justice in the kingdom. The life and actions of Athaliah serve as a stern warning about the dangers of absolute power and the horrors of unchecked ambition. Her relentless pursuit of control led her to commit atrocities that affected her own family and her kingdom. Her tragic and brutal death illustrates that although power gained unjustly may last for a time, it is always fleeting before divine justice and morality. Athaliah's story is a powerful reminder that abuse of power and manipulation to achieve selfish goals invariably lead to destruction and decay. Number 1. Jezebel. If you thought Athaliah was brutal, get ready to meet a woman whose name became synonymous with everything most perverse, manipulative, and destructive: Jezebel. Among all the female figures mentioned in the Bible, perhaps none inspires as much fear and revulsion as this Phoenician queen who ruled Israel with an iron hand and relentless spirit. Daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians and priest of the goddess Astarte, Jezebel grew up in a deeply pagan culture where political power was intertwined with religious worship. From an early age, she was shaped amid rituals dedicated to Canaanite deities, learning to use her position to impose, control, and destroy. Her marriage to Ahab, king of Israel, was not a simple diplomatic arrangement. It was a pact of darkness that sealed the fate of a nation. By uniting with Ahab, Jezebel not only brought foreign cultural baggage, she brought a plan. Her objective was clear: to eradicate the worship of Yahweh, the God of Israel, and replace the monotheistic faith with a system of idolatry dedicated to Baal and Astarte. What followed was one of the darkest periods in Israel's spiritual history. Jezebel was not a decorative figure on the throne. She was active, determined, and used all the influence she had over the king to instigate a true spiritual revolution. Temples and altars dedicated to foreign gods were erected throughout the land, while prophets of Baal were directly supported by the palace. The Bible in 1 Kings chapter 16 makes clear the devastating impact of this alliance. Ahab, under Jezebel's influence, became the king who provoked God's wrath more than any before him, leading the people to abandon the ways of the Lord and plunge into idolatry and moral corruption. Jezebel did not merely encourage this deviation, she proudly led it. Her faith in Baal was fanatical, and her rejection of Yahweh was more than evident. It was personal, political, and profound. But her wickedness did not stop there. Jezebel was not only a woman of dangerous religious convictions, she was a cold strategist, capable of committing the worst atrocities to ensure her desires were fulfilled. A cruel example of this nature is revealed in the story of Naboth. He was a just man, faithful to God, owner of a vineyard near King Ahab's palace. The king desired that land, but Naboth refused to sell it, claiming it was the inheritance of his ancestors. What could have been a simple frustration for Ahab became, for Jezebel, a matter of blood. She devised a diabolical plan. She wrote letters in the king's name, summoning the city leaders to organize a false trial against Naboth, accusing him of blasphemy and treason. The result was cruel and immediate. Naboth was stoned to death, and his vineyard was taken by the king. This episode, narrated in 1 Kings chapter 21, is one of the darkest passages in Scripture, revealing how far Jezebel was willing to go to satisfy her will and consolidate her family's power. Manipulation, deceit, murder, all wrapped in chilling coldness. Jezebel killed an innocent man simply to satisfy her husband's whim, doing so deliberately, using the very structure of government and religion to legitimize the crime. But perhaps Jezebel's most feared aspect was her relentless persecution of God's prophets. After the famous confrontation between the prophet Elijah and the 450 prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel, an extraordinary event where fire came down from heaven consuming Elijah's sacrifice, proving to the people who the true God was, Jezebel showed no remorse. On the contrary, she was furious. She swore she would kill Elijah in retaliation, forcing the prophet to flee to preserve his life. Her threat was no bluff. Jezebel began a true spiritual hunt. Many prophets faithful to Yahweh were killed, and those who escaped had to hide. Obadiah, a God-fearing servant within the palace itself, risked his life to protect 100 prophets, hiding them in caves and sustaining them with bread and water. The atmosphere in Israel was one of fear, repression, and idolatry. Jezebel had turned the Promised Land into a field of persecution, where the truth was silenced and worship of the true God became clandestine. And still, she remained firm in her position, confident that nothing, neither men nor heaven, could bring her down. But divine justice neither delays nor fails. After Naboth's murder, Elijah received a word from the Lord. Jezebel would be judged. The prophecy was clear and terrifying. Dogs would devour her by the wall of Jezreel. There would be no mourning, no burial. The woman who caused so much suffering would have a tragic and humiliating end, fitting for her crimes. And that end did come. Years later, when the prophet Elisha anointed Jehu as the new king of Israel, his first mission was to exterminate Ahab's house. Jehu did not hesitate. He marched to Jezreel with the purpose of destroying that corrupt lineage. Jezebel, now elderly, did not back down from the threat. In a final act of pride, she fixed her hair, painted her eyes, and appeared at the window of her palace, mocking Jehu with sarcasm. But Jehu was not there to talk. He ordered his eunuchs to throw her out the window, and they obeyed. Jezebel fell, and her body was trampled by horses. Later, when they went to bury her, only her skull, feet, and hands were found. The dogs had eaten the rest, exactly as God had said through Elijah. This moment, described brutally in 2 Kings chapter 9, was not just the end of a queen, it was the symbol of divine judgment executed without fail. Jezebel's legacy is one of the darkest in the Bible. Her story is marked by idolatry, manipulation, violence, and arrogance. She not only led Israel away from God's path, she actively persecuted those who dared to keep the faith. Her name is still used as a warning against spiritual and moral corruption. Jezebel represents everything that happens when power is used without limits, when the human heart turns away from truth and plunges into deception. Her life and death remind us that no matter how untouchable someone seems, no matter how much evil appears to triumph, divine justice never fails. God's time comes, and with it, the settling of accounts. As we reflect on Jezebel's journey, we must ask ourselves, what are we allowing to dominate our hearts? Are we standing firm in the truth, or are we being seduced by influences that lead us away from God? Jezebel's story is more than a historical account. It is a mirror that reveals the dangers of uncontrolled ambition, idolatry, and conscious rejection of God's will. If you've made it this far, it's because you value learning these stories that often go unnoticed but carry deep and eternal lessons. So, if this video has edified you, don't forget to leave a like, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to the channel. This way, you help us continue bringing biblical content with depth and quality to more people. And a special thank you to the channel members. You are fundamental to the continuation of this project. With a symbolic contribution, you allow us to produce more, reach more, and go deeper into the Word. If you're not a member yet, consider joining us. Besides supporting this work, you'll gain access to exclusive videos and early content. May God bless your life, and I'll see you soon.